All right, thanks for staying with us still. You have heard from the people, and they expect a lot from the next governor of Edo State. Now, Godwin, let me come to you on this. The issue of when you get in, people have a lot of expectations generally, and they expect when you go in, there are first things to do, because you talked about the issue of creation of jobs, you talked about the issue of infrastructure, but all of these things take time. What were the first things you would do to ensure that you touch the people when you get in if you were elected by the people?
The fortune I have is that over the last 8 years, there has been a trend. We've been on a trajectory. And what we are not too worried about is trying to create unnecessary excitement and a false sense of prosperity. When I'm going around the 192 wards of Edo State, I've met millions of people and they've said, look, these are our priorities. So in terms of roads, for instance, there are certain roads that are critical that we must commence work on. And these are roads that connect a lot of people and have high economic value. So those we will begin to work on immediately. There's people, there are communities who are still, we've not been able to complete a whole school refurbishment program. So we will continue and pace ourselves. But I think what we will do more of is, like I said, the human intervention. Getting more teachers to the schools, getting these kids to quickly begin to have a sense of hope. It'll take time. I mean, that's what the Buhari administration is currently, suffering in the center. But from the numbers I see in terms of the economy, I see a rebound in terms of economic growth by the third quarter of this year and the first quarter of next year. And I'm hoping and praying that we can ride on that rebound and that growth. There'll be a bit more money, a lot of investor confidence, which hopefully will start, will help us start off. One area we will look at quickly is agriculture. It doesn't take a year to clear land, to bring in the investments, to get in the seedlings. Fortunately, they're short-dated products. You could do grains in a 3 to 6 months period. Poultry, you don't need more than 90 to 120 days to do poultry. So if we can, and now we're talking to a lot of them now, just hit the ground running, because you can see shortages. That's why food prices are going up. We're talking to a few large investors, and we're going to give all the incentives and encouragement for them to come in, hire a lot of our young people, since they already have the markets. I know somebody who brings in quite a lot, like $50 million worth of chicken and fish into Nigeria every year.
Wow.
He doesn't have now his stock, he doesn't have the foreign exchange to bring, but he has the market. You see a lot of our women now go to Cotonou to buy turkey and things like that. And they, spend foreign exchange. If we can quickly get that production in, because there is demand in the market, and make, I'm going to create quick zones, quickly put what is required, the key enablers to get those quickly started. So we're identifying those, and we want to, look for partners to quickly start in that area. At least begin to show a direction.
Nigeria is in a recession. So, the same for other states of the Federation. About 27 states out of 36, had the challenge of paying salaries and all of that. Now you talk about creating 200,000 jobs. Within what space of time do you plan to do that? And how is that going to happen? 200,000 jobs, it's so easy to say that. And now you're looking at agriculture. You have the youth on the one hand who are mostly jobless. How do you plan to harness these resources to ensure that you can actually achieve those aims?
It's going to be a link between the private and public sector. The government is not going to create government farms, because government has never succeeded in farming. But there are so many people, so many companies who have markets where they sell their products into. What government will do, what I will do, is to partner with them. Like I've just given an example. I said, I know we can be a major producer of poultry products. We have some farms today that exist in Edo State. I will call the owners of these farms to a round table and say, look, what's the chain? What do we need to get this done? You need a feed mill? How do we get investors into the field? I can demonstrate, my background is investment banking. So I can create a business case, an opportunity. I can sell an opportunity to those large corporates who have the money and attract them to come and establish, because I can show them their path to making money, how money can be made. And it's the speed of government. That's why you quickly need to fix your bureaucracy. You quickly need to fix your civil service and train them to serve as your recipients for the opportunities that are coming in. It's about linking money sources, which I know how to do. Very few people in government and politics understand that you just don't verbalize a policy. You don't say, I will do this, and it happens. There is a way, there's a process. There's a thing, and you have to have the relationships and contacts with the people who make it happen.
And do you have those?
Well, after 30 years.
So what you're saying is that we should expect a lot of foreign direct investment coming into Edo State?
I would say direct investments.
Okay.
I believe first that you've got to encourage your locals to invest before foreigners come.
All right, now there's this text message coming in. It says, I am from Gambia and the governor has good plans. I hope he wins after all. Now, please tell Edo people how you intend to get resources to execute your programs, considering the current economic challenges. This is from Dawe Gode from Gambia.
Thank you. Resources have been lean for a while. Our earnings as a state has declined from about 6 billion a month to in some months now under 2 billion. But we've never defaulted on salaries, and we haven't gone to the banks to borrow. It's about your capacity to manage what you have and to focus on your priorities. And this is my training.
So what do you think really is the priority of the average Edo citizen?
Well, the cost of living is high for them today, which means that we have to quickly intervene. Fortunately, the federal government is very aware of it, and they're pushing very hard in terms of policies. They're trying to still align and get the policies right, but I'm optimistic because I know a few of the actors at the federal level that we will get it right, and we actually are getting it right. Just that it takes a lag. There's a lag between, policy and the effects of a policy. The priority, and this is very interesting, by going around campaigning, I noticed that in most parts of rural Edo today, especially those communities we have built roads, in some cases, almost half of the road we built is now used to spread and dry food products, particularly rice paddy. And I recall in one community where I was campaigning and saying that with what we see in terms of the more production coming in, prices are likely to go down in the future. And they were not happy. Because rural communities, some rural communities are now beginning to see money. I mean, I'm just driving through and see people are not pushing, going in and harvesting more cassava, harvesting more products because they can see, there's higher food prices for them. What we need to do is to think through and say, how do we moderate that chain to make sure that everybody in the chain is happy? So the recession is creating opportunities. What government needs to do is to accelerate the process of investments and getting investors in, so that we can create a lot more economic activities, particularly in the rural areas, and begin to encourage more people to go back into production. So as a young man, nothing stops you. Yes, you might, have a cyber cafe you operate in the city, but nothing should stop you from going to the village at the weekend and look at at your watermelon farm or your poultry, so that you have alternative income.
Indeed. And of course, for you to achieve all of that, you need a secure sense of security, safe, environment and all of that. Yes, the present government, which you're part of, seems to have, gained some milestones as far as that's concerned. But how do you plan to even improve on what you have now so that the average investor, whether they're coming from within Nigeria or outside, have a sense of safety and security?
Thank you. I think, yes, at the core of all of this is security. I agree with you. Fortunately, we've done quite a lot of work in Edo. And we can proudly say today we're the safest states in terms of security in the South-South. We will need to do more. And what we've done, which I'm going to extend, is trying to have our own strategic security plan as a state and integrate it with a federal plan. Security is mostly about intelligence gathering, and deterrence. So we, at the local level, is going to activate our vigilante, what I call community policing, and working with the telecom companies, using some technology to be able to transmit very quick intelligence to, the other organs of, the security organs, and then give them the ability to respond quickly, like provision of, the logistics that they need. Because once you get the communities involved in the security, and you enable the security agencies to move, you don't have a crime-free society, but you'll be able to curb, crime. And the last thing I will do is invest in our court systems, in our court systems, law and order process. The court systems today, court processes are slow and cumbersome. You see judges sit down for hours using their hands to write judgment. No. We will invest in technology, so that the dispensation of justice becomes much faster and much more efficient.
All right. Now, people have always complained that there's a very huge gap between the elected and the electorates. Now, from Igobazoa to Fuze or Sabongidaora or to any part of Oriomo, as the case may be, people feel that the government, especially in Edo State, is just in Benin, and people don't get to connect with their governors or connect with their leaders until it's time for election. So, what would you do differently, or what's your mind in engaging the people even after you are elected, if they elect you?
Interesting. I started with talking about the politics of development. What you're describing is an outcome of the politics of oil. Where, what's important in the politics of oil is just make sure you're in Benin City. Because when allocation comes, that's where it's shared. So everybody must head in there. Politics of development means, no, you've got to go back. So it has to happen in Igobazua, right? The local government has to be strong in Igobazua, because I have to have, part of my land administration outfit there. I have to be able to give out CFOs, deal with matters. I have to decentralize these matters, because the hub of action, it cannot be Benin alone. I mean, I have some people who want to invest about $100 million in rice farms in between Ekperi and Anabete, for instance. That means that the local government, Isako Central local government, has to be strong, because I can say a lot of revenues coming to that local government. So they need technology, they need to be able to communicate, they need broadband. But back to the question, the core of the question you asked, how do citizens participate in government? It used to be cumbersome, but thank God for technology. What I do in my campaigns is, on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m., I sit down and we have this program, Talk with GO, or Talk to GO. And in some cases, I have about, as much as 1.5 million people viewing it. On Twitter, on Facebook, and, all sorts of media trying, relating to their government. So the government I'm going to run is one in which we will use the advantage of technology, because our population is youthful, thank God, to drive governance. You know what people term as e-governance. You have call centers where people can just call and complain about something, and there's a log, and somebody must respond. You will sit down in town halls, electronic town halls, and just talk, complain, say what it is. Because once you have that efficient flow of information, people will not feel this sense of marginalization. Just going around, traversing the state, what I hear, what I feel is people feel left out. They just do not. And that's what has happened. That's why the opposition is able to fester on ignorance and saying crazy, some of the things they talk about.
But you do understand that, when a person becomes governor or minister or even president, there's a tendency for people who are around him to want to protect him from the reality of what's going on out there, and so that, he's disconnected, or she, as it were, disconnected from, what is happening on the streets. So how are you going to ensure that you keep those communication lines open between yourself and the electorate?
It means that as governor, I won't go on my Facebook page. I won't manage my Twitter handle. I won't use my Twitter anymore.
Are you going to be doing those personally?
I have to, because everything is done. So it's with technology today, it's difficult, except the governor wants to be shrouded. The information is there, it's staring you in the face. So except you just don't want to see it. If you now get people, I know some people will say, look, some governors can't even operate a computer. They get someone else to read their emails for them, right? Of course, you can be manipulated that way. But fortunately, I have had to work. That's the benefit of working and building institutions. I've had to work with scores of people. I've built businesses, and it's the same model. Just in the case of government, you're just not going to earn the profit for yourself. But it's the same model, whether you're running a business or running government, to just make the processes, the systems efficient so that you can gauge the outcomes and the goals you set for yourself.
So are you going to be indeed a chief executive? Are you going to run the state like a business? Is that what's going to happen with your 30-year background in business?
I'm going to run the state as an efficient institution, an efficient organization. So if we say, for instance, we're going to say, what's the objective for our education? We want to be number one. We want to make sure that over the next 3 years, Edo is the number one in education. And how do we measure it? We want to make sure that in our NECO exams, in the WAEC exams, these are the average grades we want our kids to. That now, if that's the purpose, I now translate it back to the commissioner and the principals and say, this is what, and you're going to be evaluated based on that. So there is an evaluation process to ensure that we get to outcomes. If we say we want to be number one in sports, we have to define how we want to do it and put people in charge and make sure that those people are accountable and responsible. That's how you run a business. Right? Just make sure you give people very clearly defined goals, objectives, and have an understanding, give them the resources, and evaluate them. Unfortunately, in the political process, I give you work to do, you don't do it, you mess up, and I want to sanction you, and the whole community comes and says, please, he's our son. You say, but our son hasn't done well for us, right? The only person I find out that gets evaluated in the political process inaccurately is usually the president or the governor. Because he's the only one that goes back after every 4 years and say, here is my scorecard. So the governor has to sit down and make sure that he runs a government where he then evaluates the people he gives responsibilities to make sure that they work for the people.
Okay, let's cross over to our studio in Lagos. Nelson Ekujimi is standing by there. He is a civil rights activist and he is in our studio in Lagos. Nelson, it's good to have you on. Let me ask you this. You've been following the build-up to the elections in those states. How would you rate voter enlightenment and how ready are they for this election from what you have observed? Okay, it seems the signal is still poor. We'll get Nelson on and we'll come back to this. If you go to the streets and you talk to people, we've heard comments here and there that Obaseki is a puppet of the current governor and so on. Now, what's your response to that?
Well, I laugh at it because if you know who Oshomole is, he's a democratic, open-minded person. We sit down, and even now in government, we debate and in some cases argue over issues, and we allow good judgment and common sense prevail. So for the opponents, for the particularly the PDP, they have sold this domain. I'm saying, okay, wait a minute, accepted. Okay, so what is this puppecy about? So if I'm going to be a puppet to build more roads, to build more schools, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not going to be a puppet to take government money and give it to the godfathers. In fact, that's the height of puppecy. I'm independent. I've not earned salary. I've paid my way through. So nobody can dictate to me because I have not done one contract with the government of the state in 8 years. So I don't really, I'm not relying solely on Edo State for my existence. So why should I be? And I'm not, I saw an opportunity. I saw that I could offer service, and that's why I stepped in to do it. So for me, unlike those who are talking about puppecy, take them out of government. Take them, and see whether they can survive. They've never lived out of government. So in their minds, all they see is that a puppet type relationship between people in government, either incumbents and their predecessors.
So in other words, for you, politics is not a do or die affair, and there's not going to be a situation where a godfather somewhere or a godmother, as it were, will be breathing down your neck to deliver to them.
Deliver what? Government money? It is not happening here, and I don't see how it will happen. For the Oshomole I know, can quote me. I haven't seen one contract or one head where he says, go pay this money into this account. That's the man I know I have worked with in 8 years. So if they are telling me something I don't know, I haven't seen, then I want to say, you know what? I know him, I don't know you. Right? For the people who are talking, they ran the state as a family business. So when they talk about policy, that's where they're coming from. That's their logic for governance. They don't know any other way. So they say, Godwin Obaseki will be a puppet. Puppet to who? Puppet to Edo people, yes.
That's
All right.
fine.
Let's. I think we have the connection to Nelson Ekujimi now in our Abuja, in our Lagos studios, certainly. Nelson, it's good to have you on right now. I was asking you earlier on, even though you couldn't hear me, but I know you can hear me now. I was asking you earlier on, you've been following the build-up to the election in Edo State. How would you rate voter enlightenment in the build-up to this election in a few days?
Well, thank you very much. I think so far so good. The whole country is aware that election is going to happen in Edo State come Saturday, and we have seen a lot of NGOs, civil society groups, and even the political parties themselves with their campaign. And with what we have on ground now, I think we are good to go. We are satisfied, but that is not to say that everything is perfect, because there can never be any perfect circumstances. But with the current trend we have on ground, I think the people of Edo State are ready, to exhibit the mantra of Governor Adams Oshiomhole. If you recollect, that he was the originator of this mantra of one man, one vote. He made it a cardinal program, when he wanted to come back into office in 2012. And I hope, as an observer, that the people of Edo State will showcase that mantra that they have come to be recognized as the ambassadors of democracy come Saturday.
Okay, Nelson, let me ask you then, looking at the major contenders in this election, are you impressed? Or more importantly, do you think the people of Edo have a clear, cut idea of who they should be voting come Saturday, September the 10th?
Well, definitely, we have about 18 candidates thereabouts. And the candidates themselves and their political parties have gone around the state campaigning, and, explaining their programs. Fortunately enough, I was privileged to watch a debate on one of our national stations in which 4 candidates participated, including the candidate right there with you in the studio. And for me, I saw a situation in which he was the only one who was, propagating his manifesto, and it was like other candidates' manifesto was, to attack whatever programs he had in mind to, that he was going to do when he gets into office, if he's elected by the people of Edo State. So, by and large, I expect that the people are very conversant with these candidates, and they have made up their minds, because you will recollect that before the coming into office of Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, the state of Edo was nothing to write home about. But today, we have seen massive infrastructural development in Edo State, that today the people of Edo State can, thump their chest. And also, you realize that in the era of this economic recession, in which states are unable to pay salaries, Edo State is one out of very few states that have remained committed, to paying their worker salaries as at when due. And the state government has even gone further to also, when states are struggling to pay 18,000 naira minimum wage, the state has also gone further, to say it's going to pay 25,000 naira. So by and large, I expect that the people of Edo State are aware of what is in their hands. And like we say, their destiny is in their thumbprint. And so they have Saturday, September 10, either to make it or mar it. And I know that there's nobody that will want to destroy a house in which he or she has helped to build. So the ball is in their court.
All right, thank you very much, Nelson, for giving us your analysis on that. Let's come back to you, Obaseki, Godwin. Now, one issue when elections are coming like this across the length and breadth of Nigeria is the issue of the incumbent rigging the process. And there are fears here and there, especially from other political parties, that we've heard comments, people saying that the government has perfected plans to rig the election. What's your reaction to that?
Well, here again, it's coming from a warped mind, right? If you've lived in Nigeria in the last 3 years, you'll find out that the electoral process has been improved considerably, particularly with the use of technology now in our elections. I will want to say that INEC is not a perfect institution, but they have done as well as most electoral bodies in the world have. You can see them working hard at improving elections. For us, we promulgated the mantra of one man, one vote. That's how we got into government, and that's how we've been able to sustain this administration in government. We haven't, we were able to win elections in Edo State, even when PDP was the government at the center. Did we rig then? We ensured that the votes counted. Is it now that we are in government, we'll now rig in a thing? What's the point? I guess what is important in this election is that because Edo's election is the only one that day, it's going to be transparent. The whole world will view and see what we're doing. So for people today to be,
insinuating
that there will be rigging as well. This is you in your own elements. This is your tradition. So you expect this is what, if you were in government as federal, this is what you will do, and this is what you did in some of the other states. But I believe, that looking at the last voter registration exercise, I believe Edo people will come out in their large numbers to vote, and I believe that despite all the plots to create havoc and violence, we will resist them and we'll have a very peaceful election in Edo State.
All right. Well, finally, because we're pressed for time now, you were nominated Global Leader for Tomorrow as far back as 2001 by the World Economic Forum. Now, talk to the people directly, and maybe you want to tell them why they should give you the opportunity to actually lead them. And after you've been governor, what next?
Well, you see, for my people of Edo, the last 8 years have been one in which we have demonstrated that a state government that had been pillaged, that had been raped, with good governance can come back alive. We have had good quality leadership, we had had good governments in government, we have been accountable. That has made it possible for us to begin to rebuild our infrastructure. We've built roads, high quality roads, we've refurbished our schools, we are refurbishing our healthcare system, we're building hospitals, we're refurbishing our general hospitals, we're building a new hospital in Benin City. We're providing water in several communities and stringing electricity lines into several communities. These developments have enhanced the economic life of our state. It is important that we continue in this direction. What we have today is a choice between us continuing with what we have done, what we started 8 years ago, or going back to those people who put us in the dark in the first place. That is the decision we need to make in this election. It's not a complicated one. Do we want to go forward or do we want to go backwards? And I know Edo people know what to do. They know the answers, and by the grace of God, with me as your governor, we will take Edo to the next level.
Godwin Obaseki, thank you very much for joining us in TVC Breakfast, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best.
Wow.
All right, we have been spending time with the APC governorship candidate of the Edo State governorship as we get along, and we have spent the whole of the morning talking with him. You have listened to him, and we'll go on a break now, and then we come back again to continue with the program. Stay with us.